Well, here comes the next bit of opinions, guys. Drak here. And the next bit of opinions are on Diablo 3. So I actually got into a bit of a discussion in the live stream that Diablo was not part of the opening ceremony. That they didn't have anything major to announce. In fact, it only had one panel. So that was a little disappointing, especially with the rumors going around that there was going to be a new expansion announced. I believe the rumor was based on the Scovos Isles, and they would unlock the Amazon class, and there were a couple of things actually being kind of hinted at. Well, or there was actual evidence in the game. Well, unfortunately, this is kind of a repeat for them from last year. I can't remember the exact number, but that last year they basically announced, I think it was patch 2.2 or 2.3 with Reaper of Souls, that was going to give the game more lastability over the next year. So they were announcing new Loot 2.0. They were announcing new treasure goblins. The Ruins of Secheron was announced there. They gave the game a lot of lastability, and this is kind of the exact same thing. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. Because the stuff that they announced was still interesting to me anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the announcements. First of all, they did have new areas. So 2 areas are actually going to be expanded on, and one of them is with Leoric's Manor. And so that's back from Act 1, and they decided to add the Royal Quarters, where I believe you're able to get more information on Leoric, as well as some unique information that will be able to help you out in the future with future seasons. So they're doing that, and that's really cool. It's interesting to go back to Leoric's Manor and have that more regal look to it. So I'll have images up, obviously, and they're pretty good, actually. The second area is the Eternal Woods, and I believe it's an expansion of the Ruins of Secheron. And this is one of the things that they announced last year, is that they were going to bring in a whole new family of monsters based on Yetis. Well, this is the patch that's going to do it. The Yetis will be available in the Ruins of Secheron, but this Eternal Woods actually has a distant cousin of them, and it's basically Berserker Yetis. That's literally the best way I know how to describe it. They are angrier Yetis, and they look bigger, more powerful, things like that, but so it's a more snow-driven area. I actually like the look of it. The third area is actually a whole new area called Grey Hollow Island. So you can only access it through Act 5. So it's got that same kind of gothic horror environment, but it's basically an island in the middle of nowhere. So you really feel isolated. It's raining all the time. It's very dark, very gloomy. But they will have new things to do out there, and that's one of the other big announcements that came with it, was more stuff to do, roughly. So there's going to be 175 plus new bounties that are going to be added to Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. There's also going to be areas called Bounty Grounds, where you will be able to, under specific circumstances, be able to earn extra loot. Like, for one of the examples that they actually made was, you might get an event where there's one shaman and a bunch of little warriors, and you have to kill the shaman, you can't kill the warriors. But he keeps on spawning warriors to protect himself, so you really have to kill the shaman fast. So they're going to do a bunch of things with this Bounty Grounds that is going to be interesting. They're also going to be improving the game UI features, such as buffs, basically adding in a World of Warcraft-esque kind of group buff indicator. They're going to add in new helpful gear tooltips to help people understand the buffs that they are getting from, say, like fountains or items. They're also going to be adding in armor set dungeons, and this was the interesting part. So all the classes have specific armor sets that gain specific benefits. Well, with the armor set dungeons, this is a dungeon that you literally have to use that armor set to beat it. And you have to beat it within a certain amount of time in some cases, but you have to have that armor set, otherwise you can't succeed. That's all well and good, but the one part that actually hit me really well is that these are not just going to be accessible from your town map. You actually have to go out into the world of Sanctuary and find them. So you will get little hints along the way of where they are, and you have to go out into the world and find them, and then you have to beat them in order to unlock them. So I like that idea, personally. I know a lot of people kind of groaned at that, but I thought that was actually an interesting idea. And it's a way to get people back out into the world of Sanctuary. Because I don't know about you, but when I get into Diablo, I'm playing strictly adventure mode. And I see towns and I see greater rifts, and I see rifts, and that's about it. So I like the idea that they are actually encouraging you to get out into the world and explore it. The other thing, speaking of rifts, they actually also added a new tier of rifts called Empowered Rifts. And that's basically you can pay a certain amount of gold, and it'll scale up from what you want to do to get better drop chances, get extra rolls on items, things like that. So that'll be an interesting way to be able to get people to use up the gold reserves that they've probably gotten by now, since the auction house no longer exists. So that's pretty much the announcements for Diablo 3. My thoughts on it, again, Royal Quarters, Eternal Woods, Grey Hollow Island looked really good. And it's one of those things that I have to say about Heroes and Hearthstone as well. When I get new announcements, it just makes me want to play the game. And so Diablo was no different. This happened to me last year when they had the 2.2 or 2.3 announcements. This is no different. I want to go in just to see what Grey Hollow Island looks like. I love the idea of the bounty grounds. I love the idea of being able to go out into the world and explore again. Does it make me want an Act 6? You bet, but I have a feeling that the Diablo team is working that out, but they need to pad that time until they can get it ready. And that's at least my guess here, is that they're just kind of padding out the time until they can either have the resources or the green light to be able to work on a new expansion. But in the meantime, that's actually all of the Diablo 3 announcements, and I'm excited. I don't know about you guys. If you want more information, there are Diablo fan sites that have acquired this information in more detail. But you are more than welcome to go and look up those sites. In the meantime, though, I've got plenty of other announcements to go through, so that's going to do it for my announcements for Diablo 3. And coming up next, we're going to tackle StarCraft 2 and what they are planning to do after Legacy of the Void, which comes out this Tuesday. So stay tuned.